Hey, folks. Long time no see. It has been since January 1st. This is it. It's May 20th. My name is Matt, also known as Crypto Heartbeat. We are on Christians in Crypto and on X platform. And this is the Sovereign episode 1. So I spent the last 5 months doing a number of things. But one of those things is reflecting on this whole crypto game and what it really means. And I'm gonna share a lot with you today if you're willing to listen. But for those of you who have ears to hear, it's so good to see you. Um, I'm only doing this today because I was told to do it today. I literally have been out of the game streaming for a reason. And today was the day. I was told, hey, you need to do this. And so if you want to follow any of this content, which is completely up to you, you'll want to subscribe to Christians in Crypto on YouTube. So I'm going to be streaming to this channel and not to Crypto Heartbeat. I'll put a video up there. But if you're interested in what I have to say, you'll come over here. So the topics and the things that I'll talk about are different than they have been in the past, and it's because of really the reflection and growth over the last, let's see, 5 months. And so I'm excited to share with you the things that are happening, but I want to share with you the insights and the revelations that I've had in this time, because they've been really, really profound. And some of these things you've heard before, but some you haven't. And it's a really new trajectory. I feel like I've come to understand how God wants me to see crypto, and wants me to see the financial system, and wants me to see what's happening. And so I'm going to be sharing that stuff with you. But today, it's a new series. This is episode 1 of the Sovereign. And of course, you think of the sovereign as a coin, right? An actual, gold coin called a sovereign. But obviously a play on words, because sovereign is God himself, right? Sovereign over all things, right? So who's the boss? Who's the king? And so that's the inspiration of the name. And we're going to talk a lot about real value today. And that's really a big theme for what I've come to understand. And I want to share with you is we are in a upside down world. And that upside down world that we're in is constantly lying to us, right? So things are literally inverted. And as I reflect on that, I realize, okay, there's a calling we have, right? Jesus taught us to pray, right? On earth as it is in heaven. What does it look like? What is our responsibility? How are we taking the tools that we have that are neutral and animating them in a certain nature and character? How are we utilizing the blockchain? How are we to view crypto, right? There's some people who would say, that's the mark of the beast, man. Seriously, there are people who are like, and you know what I would say to them? There's a really good chance that if there's going to be a mark, it's going to be digital, right? Forehead and hand or wrist or whatever. Something that keeps you from buying and selling. Right now, if you've got cash or you're bartering, no one can get in your way of transacting. But if there's this mark, and this mark can be essentially used to keep you from buying and selling, I can easily see that being a part of this digital thing. And so there's a big theme there that I'll share with you as well. But I want to take you to really the core inspiration of really everything for me moving forward as it relates to crypto. And it's really the economic system. And so I'm going to share that with you. This is Isaiah 55. Okay. And so Isaiah 55 says, "Come all you who are thirsty. Come all you who are thirsty. Come to the waters." Okay, so this is an invitation for those who are thirsty. I would even say that term thirsty, think about being thirsty. You can go about 3 days without water, and you get very, very thirsty. And it's something that's not just I'm interested in it. It's like, no, I have to have this. Okay, so come, all you who are thirsty, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come, buy and eat. I believe what Isaiah 55 is talking about is this idea that there is a system, there is a kingdom, there is an abundance, there is a nature of creation that God intended that actually is abundant. And when you see this, those of you who have no money come by and eat, it's really interesting. Okay, so is that just poor people? Okay, you're thirsty, you don't have any money. I'm not expecting you to pay for this. Okay, okay. I'll go with that. Come buy milk, wine and milk. So come buy wine and milk without money and without cost. Well, that was really interesting and confusing to me. I'm like, what does that mean? So we're going to dive into that. Why spend money on what is not bread and your labor on what does not satisfy? Listen, listen to me and eat what is good, and you will delight in the richest of fare. Okay, I'm going to share with you and a bit of an analysis of this. So I dug into the Hebrew and I wanted to understand, what does this mean? Is this really this vision for a time where it's just like, everything's free, a bunch of freebies? Is this universal basic income? What is this? And I want to share with you a little bit of insight into what this looks like. So let me open up a slide for you here. See if I can do this. You know what? I'm gonna have to do it a different way. Let me do it this way. I'll just walk through it this way. So I dove into the term, come by without money and without cost. Well, the term come by wine and milk is not bread. It's separated out because bread is mentioned in the next verse. So wine and milk at that time were obviously, this would be a delicacy or something that is seen as decadent. It's extra, right? If bread is something that is life, then wine, right, fermented juice, and milk would be something that would be kind of like dessert, right? Sweet, and a delicacy, if you will. Okay, so it's saying, hey, come buy this good stuff, right? That seems kind of extra without money and without cost. Well, the term money and the term without cost, actually, if you dive into the origin of these words, it says without fear and without wages. Okay, so I want to really dig into that. Without fear. So it says, come buy wine and milk without fear. And the term that's used here is money. It's interesting, right, that it says money, because at first blush in the English translation, you'd say, without money? Come buy without money? No, come buy without fear. Are you afraid of anything? This idea that we have these central bank digital currencies and we have this tool of the blockchain that's being co-opted by centralized players, I could see a scenario, well, maybe a mark of a beast or something that keeps you from buying and selling that would cause you to be fearful, right? I'm worried that somebody might shut me off. Somebody might freeze my account. Okay, so this vision here is saying, come buy wine and milk without fear and without wages. I thought the term wages was interesting. It's used as cost in the English translation. Without cost, without wages. Well, the wages of sin is death. Okay. What are wages? Wages are something that you receive when you're working for someone. And if you think about that as it relates to being indentured, or in some cases being employed, this idea of wages is you're working for someone. You are underneath someone else's authority. So without money and without fear and without wages says, hold on, this vision for this economic system of the kingdom of God is one in which there's not fear and there's not under the hand of oppression. There's not someone you're working for. And that just for me was incredible. It's one thing to say, hey, come without money and without cost. Hey, that sounds great. It's free stuff for everyone. No, that's not what I believe it's saying. I believe what it's saying here is that the goodness of God, the abundance of God's creation, the abundance of this is actually meant to be without fear and without working for or being under the authority of a heavy hand. Then it goes on to say, why spend money on what is not bread and your labor on what does not satisfy? So think about this. There's this picture of saying the work of your hands, your labor. Steve was great at saying all value is a product of human labor. If you think about that, all this value is a product of your creative ability and your labor. Why spend money on what is not bread? Meaning, why spend money on what does not create life, right? The things that would create death. Why spend your labor on what does not satisfy you? And then this is the call. Listen to me and eat what is good, and you will delight in the richest of fare. And I love the term richest of fare. What a neat phrase that is. Well, if you dive into that, what do you find? The richest of fare is abundance. Listen to me, which I think is interesting, right? Man does not live on bread alone, but out of every word that comes out of the mouth of God. Listen to me. A speaking Jesus. Listen to me and eat what is good, and you will delight in abundance. Oh, wow. So if I listen to you and eat what is good, I will delight in abundance. Give ear and come to me. Wow. So we're not only listening, we're giving our ear, we're coming to you. Listen that you may live. Oh, so there's life in this. It's not just food, it's not just money, it's not just abundance. No, this is actual life. What did Jesus say he was? I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I will make an everlasting covenant with you, my faithful love promise to David. See, I have made a witness to the peoples, a ruler to the commanders of the people. Surely you will summon nations you do not know, and nations you do not know will come running to you, because of the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, for he has endowed you with splendor. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call on him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake their ways and the unrighteous their thoughts. Let them turn to the Lord, and he will have mercy on them, and to our God, for he will freely pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. What's amazing about Isaiah 55 is it's a picture, a vision of this idea of a kingdom. And so I want to unpack that for you. And I want to talk about this because this is really the core inspiration of why I'm doing this now. Why I'm doing the sovereign, why I'm speaking about this, why I'm doing this on Christians in Crypto and not on Crypto Heartbeat, the channel, why I'm moving forward with this. Folks, if any of this stuff offends you and turns you off, please, please don't watch. We're embarking on a new path. I am. And what's incredible about it is what God has done over these last 5 months and created some tremendous opportunities for us. But more importantly, he's given a root of a foundation of a story of clarity on direction. And so I want to break that down for you. Folks, we're coming into a battle in an age of digital currency, which is literally the battle is for control. And if you look at folks like XRP that made a $5.3 billion offer to Circle to buy USDC, you should see the writing on the wall. USDC and USDT are stable coins, and they're dollar denominated. And of course, the US would love dollar hegemony, right? They would love to be, dollar dominance and keep this reserve status. But if you think about this, this is a fiat-backed currency. Only 25% of it is in actual US dollars. The rest is in dollar equivalents. So treasury notes so that they receive yield. That's how they make money. But Circle and USDC and USDT with Binance, Tether, is ultimately, it can be, you can be blocked. Okay, so it's important to know this. These are stable coins with admin keys. And if you think about this conversion to digital, and all the money is about to go digital, obviously, right? But I want to paint a picture for you and why this is so very important. If there is this vision that God has for the kingdom, right? This kingdom of God, which is abundant, and it's this outline, come with, buy wine and milk, buy without cost, without money, well, without fear and without wages, without being under the hand of authority. Well, that's freedom. And right now, the current system, the reason that the battle is for stablecoins is because those stablecoins can be controlled. And of course, we know this. What's happening is we're going from this governmental Federal Reserve system to a corporate controlled one. The battle is actually between people like Peter Thiel and Planeteer and all of these people who want to seize control of the monetary system in corporate hands. That's the shift that's happening here. It's still centralized. And so central bank digital currencies, the Bank of International Settlements, all the central banks working together want to approve and say, these are the stable coins, and we're going to have tandem agreements between us. But essentially, it's a surveillance capability. The ability for you to say, well, you know what, I don't like the what you've purchased. Your carbon is too high. I don't like your social credit score, whatever it may be. And so the battle here is for the money to be trackable and traceable. And of course, that's a really serious problem when you think about no fear and no wages, right? Being under the hand of oppression or authority. But the reason we got into crypto, and I'm sure that you're probably aware of this, is because it's censorship resistant, because it can be immutable, because it is not controlled by a centralized party. But of course, we know that we've sacrificed Bitcoin on the altar of decentralization. That's happened. Why? Because of the miners that control, all the equipment, the ASIC miners, but then all the consolidation and centralization of the mining capability as well. But if you start looking across the board at all of this, you know what? The people that are just looking and that are just focused on making money don't care about this stuff. They don't care about this at all. Kingdom of God, future of stuff. What do you mean? Mark the beast. I don't care. Get mine now. That's how most people see. If that's you, go somewhere else. Please do not be here. If you're open to another way of looking at things and saying, hold on, we have a responsibility to create a future that is actually free. Not just like, trust me, I'm Crypto Heartbeat, or I'm Matt, I'm some nice guy. No. Don't trust me. The whole point of this is that it's trustless. And so one of the things that is amazing, a calling for me, is to unlock generosity, global generosity, by giving. Well, what does that mean? It means that you actually give it away, right? The boy in John 6, he gives his 5 loaves and 2 fish. Well, did he hold it back? Did he only keep some for his family? What happened there? Well, I think what we're called to do, if we're really considering Isaiah 55, or considering this on earth as it is in heaven, a responsibility that we have, a calling that we have, that we would create systems that literally are not in the hands of anyone. Not me, not somebody you trust, not Richard Hart, not a central bank. No, they have to be out of the hands of those folks. Well, how do you do that? Well, that's what I've been now multiple years now, but the last 5 months have really been drilling down on and got some amazing traction. But I think that we have to have a vision that's rooted in this future state, this kingdom of God. It says the kings of earth will bring their splendor into the kingdom. It's a really interesting phrase when you dig into it. What does that mean? What does it mean when who are the kings of earth? I think that's you and me. What is the splendor that we bring? Well, what can we do? We can only do what we hear, right? Because everything else, if it's not connected to the vine, it doesn't have any, significance, eternal significance. And so what I'm trying to do is to listen carefully to what Jesus is saying, a calling, an interest, all of these things, and applying these to the tools. Somebody needs to advocate for true decentralized freedom. So the battle is for stablecoins. What's interesting about this is the crypto market is tied mostly, and the focus is essentially kind of a degenerate gambling. And one of the big things that was a conviction for me months and months ago was, if we really think about what crypto is at its current state, it's really degenerate gambling, and it's speculative in nature. And so because it's speculative in nature, essentially, if you really boil it down, it's essentially abstracted stealing. So all kinds of influencers and people that hold big bags of certain things will promote them. Well, that's the game, right? Well, if I can convince somebody dumber than me to come in and put money in, I can get out, right? So essentially, ultimately, it's a promotion game, right? Until something significant happens, which I think will, which is full digitization of money. Right now, this is a speculative asset, and we're just hoping that goes up. Well, how does it go up? Well, Well, more buyers than sellers. So I just need to convince other people who are new to bring money into the system so I can sell at the top. Well, if you really think about that, that's abstracted stealing. Now, you might be fine with it because you don't know the person, you can't see their face. But at the end of the day, that's really what it is. Because if you think about the net in all of this is not unlocking something that's abundant. This is just taking from somebody else. The person was dumb. And so I came right into a scenario like that. I come into crypto, ride it to the top. I see this awesome gain. I don't think about it. I'm like, wow, it's money. This is really cool. Buy my daughter a car. Woohoo. But what you don't realize is the frenzy of all of this, right? And this is the 4-year cycle is man, what, you are worshiping money, right? This, like, I can get some disproportionate return here by getting in early to this thing. And if I tell a bunch of other people and they tell a bunch of other people, then there's some dumber people will come after me and I'll sell into them. And this is how it works, right? And then, somebody really smart calls the top and you listen to them and you get out and you're like, over the next 4 years, you're like, woohoo, look at me. As if I'm really smart and I've done something. But when you think about the overarching value to humanity, it's highly limited. Now, I'm totally fine with the fact that, hey, you got into this, you risked it, and you got duped, right? You got convinced that this was going to go to 1 million and it topped out. Okay, fine. That's the name of the game. I love playing poker. You bring a certain money to the table. If you win or you lose, you knew what you got into. So I'm not really judging that. I'm just saying the conviction for me was, okay, this really, the net effect of this is kind of a, it's abstracting, taking from somebody else, convincing somebody. So there's a disingenuousness to it. Could it be different? And that's really the big question that I've been trying to answer. Is could it be different? Yes. Isaiah 55 says there's a whole different system here. Well, I want to share with you what I see coming and what I think is the opportunity, because I think it's incredible. And it's not an opportunity. You're going to be rich. You might be, but it's not about that. It's about what should we be doing as believers in Jesus? What should we be doing as we relate to a kingdom? Your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. What does it look like? What is this kingdom? And of course, we'll get into in future episodes things like what's really happening, in the world. Everything. We'll go into UAPs. We'll go into all kinds of things that are really a sign of the times. But let's focus right now on the money itself. So we talk about centralized stable coins, and of course, there's a real interesting case to be made for. We need a truly decentralized stablecoin. And there are some out there, right? There are protocols that create those. DAI is probably the closest one within the Ethereum blockchain. But we'll split that hair in a minute. What I want to talk about now is this idea that we're living in this world where the only option that the centralized planners have is the ability to print money. And so if you think about where we are in the world, Raoul Pal came out a couple weeks ago with probably one of the most profound statements as it relates to understanding the economic system. And he basically said, just watch where the money goes. M2 increase in liquidity drives everything. So if you understand liquidity in the market, and this is, the global stock market, global financial system, it's all about liquidity. It follows the liquidity. And that makes sense, right? The more liquid things are, right? And if you think about what's happening right now with China and with other folks, they're injecting money into the system. So liquidity is going up. Well, the markets go up, right? We knew that last time when they turned the money printer on and printed what, $5 to $10 trillion with the Charlie 19. Well, that's what made this massive boom. Well, that's the only option they have in the playbook now. But what happens when you increase the money supply, right? You obviously inflation, right? You're debasing the currency. Well, that's a big concern, right? Unless you hold assets, right? Why is gold at $3,300 or close to that, 32 something today? Why? Because it is denominated in dollars. So when I look at the price, it's reflecting actually the debasement of the currency. And so as we look in the future, well, if the only card that they can play to prop up this dollar system, this fiat system that's only based on agreement, Well, they're going to have to debase the currency because they're certainly not paying back sovereign debt. And so that's really how empires fall. But right now, we're going to prop this thing up. Well, what's the opportunity? Well, if you're going to print a lot of US dollars, you're going to end up debasing the currency. And what's really sad about that is the people that don't have any assets will not realize any of this hedge. You won't hedge this inflation. And so people that hold gold or hold land or hold, assets in general, homes or whatever, you're going to see asset prices go up. It doesn't mean that they're more valuable. It just means that the dollar's being debased. But at least you're going to have a hedge against it with some sort of asset. And so there's a big push in the world right now for the tokenization of real world assets. Well, what's that all about? Well, there's a real opportunity there that people see that have the money is to inject a lot of liquidity that has not been liquid in the past. So take commodities, take securities, take all of these different things. There's obviously efficiencies that come with the blockchain, but there's also this increase in liquidity. And liquidity obviously drives things. And so there's this huge opportunity in the marketplace to tokenize real world assets. But who owns those real world assets? So if you look at the gold mining space and you look at who owns it, well, it's about three groups. BlackRock and State Street are two of the big ones, Vanguard. They pretty much own all the assets. And so what are they doing right now? They're gobbling up all of the assets. Why? Because they know that the US government and governments across the world are going to debase the currencies together, hopefully. And it's going to basically just means everything costs more, but you're going to end up, hopefully getting paid a little bit more. But really what it's doing is it's taking people who don't have assets and it's going to make them really, really, really poor. And so the challenge here is there's a future where if we love our neighbors ourselves, if we care about others in addition to ourselves, we ought to think about, could we utilize these tools of the blockchain to return these things to a system that is more free? Can we turn it into a system that is more fair? Can we literally get ourselves out of the center of this thing and can we give it away to the world? Can you literally let go of it? And I think there's a lot of people who are thinking in those terms, right? Having privacy, having the ability to, create your own stable coins, to have stable coins that are tied to, they may be denominated in dollars, but they're tied to real world assets that are going to realize the benefit of gaining in value as the dollar and fiat currencies are increased in their supply. And so there's an incredible thing happening there. But I want to point you to a future which is going to happen. There's going to be a moment in the not too distant future when Amazon.com and Walmart.com accept stablecoins. Okay, so I just want you to think about this future. And of course, you see folks like MasterCard and others trying to, create this intermediate layer, and they're trying to survive as well to be essentially, important in the future. But just imagine this future. Okay, let's say one day you wake up and Amazon says, we're accepting USDC. Okay, think about that. Do you think that's a probability? Do you think that might happen? Yes, that might happen. I'm sure it's going to happen. Obviously, MasterCard and other people and settlement banks are trying to do that right now, because they don't want direct, they're probably going to advise people like the big retailers to not accept direct USDC. Why? Because they want to have the KYC in between, right? With your issuing bank of your card, right? You have to do the KYC. Well, we won't go there right now, but the point is, I want to make this point. Right now, you consider, and we feel like, and we kind of measure things in crypto as assets, right? So not as currency, but as assets. The moment at which, let's say, and I'm just making up this story, let's say you're a woodworker and you order the fine wood that you create cabinets or cutting boards or something with. You buy those on Amazon today. And let's say you've gotten some gains in crypto. The current state of affairs is you would go, let's say, into a Coinbase. You would sell to cash. Okay, so you've already been KYC'd there, but you sell to cash. And essentially you're selling whatever asset that you had in crypto. You get that converted into US dollars. Then you get that out of your, into your bank account. Now you're in fiat. You take that fiat, you pay your credit card bill because likely you're paying on Amazon with your credit card. And at Amazon, you buy this wood and you create whatever you create at home. And so you're in a business, you create cabinets or you create furniture or something. Well, that's how it currently works. Well, the moment is coming is where straight out of your wallet, you buy the wood. Do you see the benefit there? Obviously, that disintermediation of the third party goes away. But that immediately means that whatever you have in crypto, because of the liquidity pools in DeFi, I don't care what you have, right? You got any type of crypto, you can, in a second, you can swap for a stable coin that they accept. Now, you're not sitting in that stable coin, that centralized stable coin, but you're going to be able to bridge. So any value that makes it into the blockchain before that real watershed moment in which Amazon and Walmart and all these different retailers accept stable coins, all of that value is going to be liquidity in the market, right? Because it's essentially now completely transferable to get real goods and services. So you see this bottleneck that we've got. The bottleneck is places like Coinbase, right? These are the off ramps right now. And because in our mindset and what we've been thinking about it, everything has just been, well, I've got to go to fiat. I've got to go to fiat. Folks, there's coming a day when you do not need to go to fiat. That's the day when it all changes. But here's the thing, that sounds really exciting, right? Woohoo! I've got, all the value I've got in crypto now I can use to get actual goods and services to do my business to create more value. Wonderful. But this is the game plan. The game plan of the centralized players is that they would control the stable coins, right? They would be the ones to monitor transactions and all this. Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to buy goods and services, a lot of times you have to let people know who you are. Fine. I'm not trying to get away with that. What I'm saying is we have to have a system that doesn't have fear and it doesn't have essentially authority's hand. Can we do that? The answer is yes, we can. But we have to own the assets. Okay. And this is the problem. A lot of poor people in crypto, right? A lot of people that are hoping, hoping a prayer, right? And rightfully so, right? Getting you out of the hole that you're in with a disproportionate, gain. I get it. I mean, everybody wants a silver bullet, right? But the real future, if we're going to do this, is we're going to actually have to have our own liquidity. And I don't mean just some rich fellow. What I mean is we need to own the assets and tokenize those assets. But the exciting part of that is that there are a lot of assets out there. There's a lot of asses out there. There's a lot of assets out there that are actually very valuable that are undervalued. And the ability to essentially tokenize those and bring those on chain, it requires more than just the asset. You have to have the other side of the pair in DeFi. Okay. So you have to have people who have a vision for really creating this value. But to me, gold is something that, I'm focused on, the sovereign, all of this, these themes. And I believe that there's a really unique opportunity that we have to essentially, as the people of God who are concerned about the kingdom and this future that's outlined, is that and I mean this really broadly, the universal church, this is a group of people that are, there's more resources across that group of people, billions of people, than just about anywhere. And the ability to essentially, ultimately, long term, have this kingdom bank, right? One of the things that God was very concerned with was the fact that there were not equal weights and measures in Israel. And if you think about this idea of debasing the currency, that's what that is. It's unequal weights and measures. It's not fair. And so we want a fair system, right? We don't want one that is we're fearful of, and we don't want one that we're oppressed by. We certainly don't want to be a part of one that you have to have this mark in order to buy or sell. And folks, like, I thought that was crazy talk when I was younger. That's like, I'm seeing how that could happen with digital currency. The mark of the beast is so easy to understand now, and I could see how it come. So we have to have an alternative financial system. And that to me is really important. And I feel like a personal responsibility to be a part of building that. And so as we look at the future, and as I look at the future and our team and all of the things that we're doing, we're acquiring assets. We want to bring those asset value onto chain. And then we want to pair that with real value and create liquidity. And from that liquidity, we want to give it away. Well, what does that mean? You just give it away? Yeah. Yeah. So if you know the two tokens, Texan and Ophir, they are the first endowment token on the blockchain. Well, that concept of an endowment, what we're working on is we're creating essentially the ability to encapsulate a stake, and that you'll be able to gift a stake to someone, but they cannot end that stake. So imagine giving a gift to someone that only pays out interest. Okay, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to also be launching some other things that are related to that. But the point is, we want the people of peace. Okay, and you want to dig into that from the scripture perspective. Who are the people of peace? So if you go into a new place, you find the person of peace and you stay with them, you eat with them, you heal with them, you pray with them, right? Who are those people? Well, those are people across the world that are a part of the local church. And what's amazing is essentially a pilot program, which is the Ophir crypto. I mean, 300 plus pastors who are given endowments by the Ophir team. Heard a story about a pastor the other day who was uh, told a story of a grocer in their town was willing to accept Ophir for groceries, which I thought was crazy. What a neat story. Folks, there's this future coming where not only the value, but also the ability to transact without tracking and tracing and all of that stuff um, is coming. And if we're going to actually build something that's, you know, no counterparty risk, censorship resistant, we're going to have something that doesn't have fear and oppression, we're going to have to build it ourselves. But we're going to have tremendous amount of value there, because it's one thing to have a token, right? And it's another thing to have liquidity. The whole thing's about liquidity. If you can't get out and you can't turn that into something or swap that for something to get what you need to run your business, to do whatever it is, then it doesn't have any value. It's just speculation, just getting other people to come in and to buy it. But my vision is that believers across the world who have businesses, who understand the calling of the kingdom of God, would recognize that, what if we work together and we understood that this token or these series of tokens or this, you know, endowments are serving people that are in tremendous need. I was talking to John, the founder of Ophir, and I said, what would happen if, what if the interest on an Ophir stake was like $125 a month? Would that be beneficial to these local church pastors? And he freaked out on me. He goes, "You have no idea. An extra $125 US dollars in the Philippines in a remote church would be like, um, it would feel like millions of dollars. You don't realize how impactful that would be." Well, I ran the numbers. It wouldn't take much for that to be the case. Well, there's people all across the world that want to be generous. I mean, I know all kinds of people who do philanthropy and giving and all of those kind of things. But I think what you need to realize is that in community, if we work together and there are people who are creating real value in the real world, right? Creating businesses that actually provide goods and services. And instead of saying, oh, well, we need to give those to this charitable organization or that charitable organization. No, this is a means through endowments where you can essentially provide direct aid. Well, what happens when the people of God come around the people of God and they own the assets and they unlock the liquidity and they make the market? And then what do? They contribute to this system with real value. And so, for example, I use this to separate it from the church just to make a really clear example. Let's say you're a part of the Concrete Pourers Association of America. It doesn't exist. I'm making it up to make an illustration. And let's say you have a concrete plant and you lay concrete. Well, let's say somebody came in and tokenized and they said, we're going to create the rock token. The rock token, okay? And the rock token is something that is promoted to all of the concrete businesses. And it says, all right, folks, everyone has to agree, and not that they all would, but let's say everybody agrees to put 2% of profits or 1% of profits, and you're always going to be a buyer of the rock token with the proceeds from your real business. Okay. Well, what would happen is the net effect of that would be that anyone around the world could be a part of participating in the profits, essentially, of the concrete industry. Okay. So you see what's happening is that this is constantly having this buy pressure, right? But internally, if it was just the buyers, right, and no sellers, there's no market, there's nothing. But what happens is the world sees, oh wow, the rock token is based on this business. I can literally expose myself to the concrete business through a token that's tied to their association. It can be more complicated than that, but that's the simple thing. So when it comes to the things that are eternal, right, and we think about the local church and what it's doing, and especially in the Philippines, they're serving people with healthcare, childcare. They're doing all kinds of things in addition to spiritual work. And so this idea that we essentially come around people and we say, you know what, we're going to literally give it away. We're going to give endowments to these people of peace. They don't just have to be pastors at churches. There can be a lot of different types of people. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean anything unless you have real value and real liquidity. And then you have a group of people that is essentially working together to continue to support that community, not because they want to make a bunch of money and, to the moon, right? Diamond hands, big bags, not this whole speculative thing. No, because they believe in this kingdom system that should have no fear and not be under the hand of authority. And it's us working together, unity within the church, believing that, hey, we should consider others in addition to ourselves. And it's not a really big burden, but if we work together, it's a tremendous system. And I believe that, if you look into, I think, Revelation 19, Babylon's going to burn in an hour. It's an economic system. This Babylon that burns in an hour, they literally stand off and they say, we used to buy and sell great stuff there. And it burns in an hour. Well, that's this economic system. It's going to collapse on itself. There has to be an alternative. And I believe that God is giving us a vision of that. He's told us that in advance. He's speaking that out. How do you do that? Well, in my opinion, it takes leadership. It takes courage. And it takes somebody that's willing to give it away and say, no, we're going to create something that we actually give away. No OA, no one controlling the system, no one, I'm the benevolent king. Nope. No one has the ability. There is no keys. It's literally a gift. So really the challenge is do people see it for what it is, and do they adopt it, and do they understand that purpose and vision? That's what I've been thinking about for the last 5 months and more. And we've made some tremendous traction. So I'm going to be doing this pretty regularly, which will be the Sovereign. We'll do this in episode form. I'll bring something to you. It won't probably be this lengthy, but we'll talk about this idea of what is the kingdom of God? What's the kingdom economic system? What is this kingdom bank, if you will? What is this place that is abundant, that doesn't have fear, that doesn't have wages under the hands of authority? What does it look like to come by wine and milk, the good stuff, not just the bread? What does it mean to come and listen and to live, to have life? What does it mean to live fully, to live in abundance? And it's something that I believe when Jesus said, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done. Where? On earth as it is in heaven. So heaven and earth becoming one is a function of our decision making, our nature and character. And the question is, Steve asked me one time, he said, when Jesus was here with the disciples, was the kingdom of heaven near? I said, well, yeah, of course. He's like, is the kingdom of heaven near in your home, Matt? I was thinking about that. A big part of what creates the peace and the joy and the love and all of the things that make life so sweet is really a function of my nature and character and my decision making. And the question is, am I doing it with Jesus? Am I doing it because, I want to get mine? I want to step on somebody's neck, and I want to be somebody, and I want to get something, and I want to be rich. Why? So I can have a Rolex and people can recognize me? No. Folks, if that's the way you're focused, you received your reward in full. This thing's short. It is short. And folks, we do exactly what he says to do. And so I'm going to encourage you. Jesus is alive and he speaks. And the insight that you're getting is tremendous. The insight I'm getting is tremendous. But if you're not somebody who's, a believer, and you're somebody that's I'm even into this stuff, right? You're interested and you hear about UAPs and remote viewing and all this kind of stuff, or you listen to the telepathy tapes and you see that these kids that these kids that are non-speakers can literally like speak with each other across vast distances. You'd recognize there's more to this story than what is being revealed in, the visible spectrum. And I'm going to tell you, folks, there is a plan. There is a king. There is a future that's coming. And I believe we have to be prepared. I see very clearly how this thing could become essentially a slavery system, kind of already is, but I can see how the digital just puts it in the headlock. And I feel like we have a short window of time where we can build a system that's truly separated. It's truly, it's not in any one person's hand, no matter how much you like or trust them. It needs to be something that is completely immutable, no counterparty, no censorship, censorship resistant. And that is possible. But what I've realized, it's not just about creating the tools. The tools are almost irrelevant. It's really about the liquidity and the value that you bring into it. Someone has to give their 5 loaves and 2 fish. Someone has to have their lunch at the gathering and give it all away. And that's what I've been called to do. And so when I look out there at the assets that we're looking at purchasing, and I realize, it's really tough to talk to investors that you want to essentially give away what they see as me making money. And I would say, what Steve told me, so great. He goes, where do you think the 12 basketfuls went after everybody had eaten their full, right? Because Jesus told them, hey, collect the baskets, of any uneaten food. And there were 12 basketfuls left over. You know what Steve told me? He said he gave them to the boy. Folks, it's good to see you. But this is where it's going to happen. I'm going to put a video up on Crypto Heartbeat, and if you want to join in this journey and you want to walk down this path, let's go. It's really, really exciting, because I think the real opportunity is us unlocking billions of dollars in real world assets, bringing those on chain, and creating a system where people can transact without fear. They can have privacy, all of those things. These things are good things, but it's like some people are preppers, that dig a hole and put a bunker in and get a lot of food and think through all that stuff. This is essentially prepping for the return of Jesus and to be welcomed into the kingdom, the splendor that we bring into the kingdom, these systems, these plans, these things that he has spoken, we accomplish, we do. And so really, in the great words of Steve Saggs, don't listen to me. Ask him yourself. Folks, we're back. The Sovereign, episode 1 in the books. Thank you for joining. Tell a friend. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time.